Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Stephen Kingcast, one man's musings on the works of Stephen King. Each week, I will review one entry in the bibliography of Stephen King in the chronological order of publication. And this week, I'm not reviewing any of Stephen King's works. What I'm doing is I'm just saying thank you, everyone. Thank you so much. Just thanks, guys. Thanks for listening. Because 1 year ago, on this very day, I released the first ever episode of the Stephen Kingcast. It's been a year. This is the year anniversary episode, a bonus edition. And the fact that I'm here, able to talk about it 1 year later, it's really blowing my mind. So I kind of wanted to just take a few moments and talk about the origins of the podcast, and kind of look ahead to where the podcast is going to go, and talk about some Stephen King news that's been out there. So the first thing is, why don't we talk about the Stephen King news first, I guess, because it's fresh. I just read an article. I've been meaning to actually get to some of the podcast episodes, but it just keeps slipping away. Recently, it's late July as I record this. It's coming out on August 2nd. Now, in June, I released my 4-part review of The Stand, and in The Stand, I talked a lot about the casting of Matthew McConaughey as Randall Flagg, which was announced just about a year ago. I would say late August is when that particular rumor hit. So I should actually phrase it as that. A rumor. I don't believe that the casting of Matthew McConaughey as Flagg is something that's actually ever been confirmed by the actor or the studio or the director. I think it's just that they want him to play, which means that he hasn't actually signed on the dotted line, which worries me, because there's that. For an entire year to go by without them talking about that at all, or any updates on that kind of worries me. And then also recently, so not even recently, but originally when Josh Boone took the reins as the director, the Stand was going to be one movie, and then The Stand was going to be 4 movies. And then recently it was announced that The Stand was going to be an 8-episode series on Showtime, followed up with a 2-hour theatrical movie. So, from a structural standpoint, if so much is changing about what this movie is going to look like and how it's going to be presented, if that much is up in the air and if that much is malleable, then nothing is set in stone. I mean, we don't have any actors attached to this project. There's no firm date. So the reason I'm saying this is that in my review of The Stand and other reviews where I've talked about the upcoming Shining movie, I've talked about hopes. And at this point, I kind of need to go on record stating that there's even no guarantee this movie's going to get made. And it's... with the latest report of it being a TV series, like, I don't even know if we should call it a movie at this point. I just don't know what it's going to look like. So there's that. I will definitely give you more information as I hear about it, but it just does not sound... It just doesn't sound like too much positivity is coming from it. So hopefully everything works out. But a lot of where I'm coming from an emotional standpoint for The Stand actually is springing from the next production that I want to talk about, which is Cary Fukunaga's It. And actually, to call it Cary Fukunaga's It is not correct, because he has left the project, which... So in my reviews, you will have heard me talk about how excited I was that the director of True Detective was going to direct a 2-part adaptation of Stephen King's classic novel, 1986's It. I was pumped. It was great. It was everything I could have wanted, because if you have seen True Detective, you'll see that he's got it. He can do character work. He can do montages, which sounds ridiculous, but I think that it would be necessary. And he can do tone. He can do tone incredibly well, and a dreadful tone, a frightening tone, an edge-of-your-seat tone. So he had what it takes to get this movie made. He had what it takes to make it a memorable movie. But disagreements with the studio caused him to leave. And rather than receiving the actor that he wanted, which was Ben Mendelsohn, who would have been incredible. Ben Mendelsohn, who, by the way, has just been nominated, rightfully so, for an Emmy for his work on Bloodline, which you need to go see, and I really hope that he wins. So the official stance of the Stephen King podcast is that it is pro Ben Mendelsohn, and we hope that he wins for Bloodline, because he is incredible in that show. The show's incredible. He's great. And he would have made for an incredible Pennywise. But unfortunately that did not work out. We got some dude from Meet the Millers, and nothing against the actor, but I mean, you're stepping into some pretty big clown shoes, and it's not a job that I would want. But I think that Ben Mendelsohn would have knocked it out of the park, and I have no idea what the Meet the Millers guy would do. And I'm sorry to sound so dismissive. That's not fair of the actor. T.J. Miller? No, it's not. I can't remember his name. But anyway, I don't know. Now that Carrie Fukunaga's gone, now that Ben Mendelsohn is not a part of this, the director of Mama is going to direct it, which does not fill me with confidence. It doesn't fill me with anything. And I'm sure that when the movie comes out, like it'll be a movie. It might even be well done, but I don't think it's going to be good. I think that it could have been great with Fukunaga and Ben Mendelsohn, but after especially what New Line just did with the Poltergeist remake, which again, I don't mind remakes, but I just feel like this was it was like nothing. It was like bland. I'm just not filled with confidence. So I used to be excited about the upcoming It remake. Now I'm not. The Dark Tower supposedly is now in some sort of development. Now, as you may or may not know, for years, the Dark Tower has been attached to a studio, not been attached to a studio, going forward, not going forward, is going to star so-and-so, is not going to star so-and-so. So-and-so is in talks to play the role of Eddie Dean, so-and-so is not in talks to play Eddie Dean. So there's all of these back and forths, there's these starts and halts, and that's been a troubled production. I don't even want to call it production, but it's had trouble, getting up and running. And the people leading the charge have been Ron Howard and Brian Grazer, and these are two very, very gifted filmmakers with, I would say a lot of clout. And they've had trouble, but thankfully they've found a partner with Sony Pictures, and Sony needs something like this. I don't know if any of you followed any of the Sony hacks, but Sony took some pretty heavy hits and some black eyes this past year. And one thing that they need, and I know what they're looking for, is a expanded universe, like a shared universe. This is what all of the studios are doing right now. They need some sort of franchise, and they're going to put some money into Stephen King's franchise, The Dark Tower. So they have a director, I can't remember who it is off the top of my head, and they'll start with The Gunslinger. I don't know what this means in terms of the original Dark Tower adaptation ambition that Ron Howard and Brian Grazer had, where they wanted a movie, a television show, a movie, a television show. They were going to alternate back and forth, but I don't know what's going to happen. But there's news on the Dark Tower front. And lastly, the one that I want to save the best for last, we have a Cujo remake in the works, but it's not exactly what you expect. It's not Cujo, C-U-J-O. It is C.U.J.O. It's not a name. It's an acronym that stands for Canine Unit Joint operations, and that's all that we know about it. But if you think about it, probably what this means is that there's going to be some sort of scientifically engineered monster dog that's going to get loose, or maybe multiple monster dogs that get loose. So this is going to be simply a movie to build upon the pre-existing knowledge that someone has with the name Cujo, but probably change everything else. And it's such a bonkers idea. I'm totally for it. I mean, we have the original book and we have the original movie. So if you want to do something over the top, let's see. I mean, this sounds like a parody. I'm sure that's going to be earnest, but I mean, when I read that's hilarious. It's awesome. So let's see what happens. So in regards to the Stephen Kingcast, like I said, guys,
Looking for an escape? Try Ghosts in the Burbs, a podcast that began as a collection of stories about the people of Wellesley, Massachusetts, and the ghosts and monsters who haunt them, and expanded to include cozy scares in other suburban settings. Ghosts in the Burbs is written by me, Liz Sauer. These stories include no gore, no extreme horror, and no ads, ever. Just cozy, creepy escape. Find Ghosts in the Burbs wherever you listen to podcasts.
In April of 2014, I started really thinking about doing a podcast, a Stephen King podcast. I woke up one morning, I saw that the everyone over at the Castle of Horror was reviewing the ABC TV miniseries of It, and I realized that there wasn't that many Stephen King podcasts out there. I looked, I couldn't find anything that I mean, just what I looked, I didn't find anything I want to listen to. I found that there was more afterwards, but I realized that I wanted to hear someone talk about each of the books, an in-depth analysis of the books themselves, and I didn't see that out there on the internet. So, I didn't want to just jump in. I didn't really know exactly what it would look like, what it would sound like. So I thought about it. I thought maybe it was just an idea I had for a moment. But as the weeks went by and as the months went by, I realized that I was still thinking about it. So I started thinking about what it might sound like. And I thought about the closest podcast equivalent that I knew about. And I listened to a lot of podcasts, and that was Looking Back on Lost, hosted by Matt Lafferty. That is an incredible podcast. If you have not listened to it and you are a fan of Lost, I strongly recommend it. And the reason why I decided to take basically the format that Matt had laid down was because it's a single-person podcast review. Whereas most podcasts out there are multiple people bouncing back and forth, but this is just me. So I needed to make sure that there was a structure in place that would carry the audience through the particular episode and then from week to week. So I know that Matt had created a great organizational framework for Looking Back on Lost. So yeah, I mean, I think that it would work, or I hope that it would work for the Stephen Kingcast, but I owe everything to what he did with Looking Back on Lost. And I thought about it, and I realized that, I'm like, well, I could start every episode with a musical introduction, and I'm glad to note that is, one of the more popular aspects of the show, and for me, like I've said time and time again, it's just one of the things that I love doing about it. And I got myself a microphone, I started playing with GarageBand, and I started reading. I mean, it's ridiculous at this point, looking back, because now I kind of have a system in place. I'll read, I'll be reading a book, I'll have my iPhone, and then when I need to take a note, I'll just open my Google Docs, and I will, just start taking, continue my running thoughts, or if I have my laptop in front of me, I'm reading, and then I'm on my computer and I'm on Google, using my Google Docs, and I'm editing it from there, and it's a pretty smooth process. But when I started, I didn't even think of that. I mean, I remember being at the gym reading my paperback edition of Carrie. I was at a cardio machine, and I had a pen and just sticky notes, and I looked insane, just on the cardio, writing my sticky notes, putting them in the book. Some of the sticky notes were falling. Then I'd be swearing, getting my sticky note. It was a mess. I mean, I'm just a sweaty mess taking notes. Probably nothing that you've ever seen before in a gym. And then it was during The Shining, I believe. I did Carrie and Salem's Lot using sticky notes, and then the organization part afterwards was a disaster. And then with The Shining, I was like, oh my god, I have technology. I can use technology. So I started using the technology at my disposal, and it just that made everything so easier. So by the time 1 year ago today, when I released the first episode of Carrie, I had 7 more episodes pre-recorded, because at the time I didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't know if life was going to slow down my reading process. It allowed me a pretty good head start, and I've been able to maintain that pretty much I've gotten as close as having only maybe 1 or 2 episodes in the can at any given week, but at the most I think I've had like 12 episodes pre-recorded, and as a result, the more episodes I've had pre-recorded, it's allowed me to release multiple episodes per week, which we've seen with the Bachman books release, and we've seen with Silver Bullet and Cycle of the Werewolf and others. So I mean, it's something that I personally like doing now, and going forward, I'm going to try and do that more and more, rather than having just 1 episode per week. I would like to put out 2. Now, as I say this, I don't have nearly as many episodes pre-recorded as I am normally comfortable with, so I don't know. At the very least, you will always have a Stephen Kingcast episode per week, but I just want to let you know, as I head into year 2, I want to be a little bit more ambitious for myself, so you might be getting more content out there, which means that from behind the scenes I might be a little bit more stressed, but it's not going to really affect you. So the worst case scenario, it stays as is. Best case scenario is you're getting a little bit more. But guys, when I released that first episode of Carrie, I didn't know if I was going to be the only person listening. I didn't know anything about podcasting. I didn't know how any of this worked. I didn't know about advertising. And I'm going to get into that in a second. But as it stands, I have listeners worldwide. That blows my mind. And in all but 1 state of the United States. And a lot of you have been very, very vocal. I'm getting a lot of emails from people. As you know, I've been reading emails online. I love getting emails. The reviews on iTunes have been great. Very, very complimentary. I very, very much appreciate it. And I hope that everyone is enjoying it out there, and everyone seems to be. So just thank you guys. Thank you. And if you haven't done so already, feel free to write in at stephenkingcast@yahoo.com and write a review on iTunes. And a subscription on iTunes would help get the word out. But with 1 year under my belt and 80-something episodes, I mean, that exceeded what I had thought was possible. And I wouldn't have had 80-something episodes if there wasn't a demand for it. So I'm going to keep putting them out, guys. Just thanks for listening, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what year 2 holds for us. So in regards to year 2 begins very fittingly with my review of Nightmares and Dreamscapes and The Night Flyer, which, if you are listening to this before the review of Nightmares and Dreamscapes was the first new Stephen King book that I read. It was the first one that I waited for, that I saw magazine advertisements for, the first one I went out the day it was published, saw in the bookstore, got it, or the grocery store, wherever I got it, and picked it up the first time I held a fresh off the press Stephen King hardcover in my hands on the day of release. So the fact that I am celebrating 1 year under my belt. Looking forward to year 2 of the Stephen Kingcast. The fact that's being released on the same day as my review of my first new Stephen King book. That's a little magical to me. So that's pretty awesome. But looking forward this year, if I'm able to put out multiple episodes per week, then guys, we might be ending around April. And if I do a more traditional 1 episode of the week, with a couple 2 episodes per week throughout the month, then I guess I would say anywhere from between April to August. So now that I've talked a little about the beginning, let's talk about the end a little bit. So this was not a podcast that was designed to last. I mean, the whole concept of the Stephen Kingcast is to examine the chronology of Stephen King's works in the order of publication. And Stephen King doesn't have an infinite amount of novels. It seems like he does, but he doesn't. And I'm working my way pretty steadily through them. So at the date of this particular release, the novel that I'm reviewing was published in 1993. As I record this, I'm currently rereading The Regulators. So we're looking at 1996. So by the end of the summer, I'll be finishing up the 90s, which really allows me to see the light at the end of the tunnel, so to speak. I mean, and I don't want to say that he slows down, but there is a brief period, 1999, 2000, 2001, where he's not as prolific as he was, let's say, in 1996, where he released basically for a 7-month period, we got a new Stephen King book every month. That's how you should look at 1996. From March through August, there was a new chapter of The Green Mile, and all of this culminated in September of 1996, where he released on the same day Desperation and The Regulators. So that was probably Stephen King's most prolific year. And then due to the real life tragedy of him getting hit by the van in 1999, I think that slowed things down a little bit. So I mean, what I'm trying to say here is there will be an end to this podcast. There's some cleanup that I have to do on my end of things. For instance, I haven't reviewed the Creep shows, so there needs to be a couple bonus episodes where I do the Creep show, and maybe a bonus episode here and there where I review something like Stephen King's Sleepwalkers, or maybe I do Maximum Overdrive. I don't know. I mean, these are not guarantees. I'm just spitballing right here. So there's definitely going to be content for me to tackle either before or after I finish the mission statement of this podcast. And I don't know when the end is going to come, but within the year, the podcast as it stands probably will change, meaning that once I get to that end point where I catch up to his releases, which from 1 year from now, let's see, so he's releasing The Bazaar of Bad Dreams in November, and then I'm sure that he'll have something in the spring of 2016, probably the end of his Mr. Mercedes trilogy. So that could be the final weekly review. Could be. I don't know. But I want to just kind of put it out there, guys, as I head into this year. We're going to be heading towards our destination point together, so I'm really looking forward to it. And so when I sat down 1 year ago to start recording these episodes, and I thought about what this might look like, I sat down and I was rereading Carrie. The first big goal point that I had in mind was it. And that was something that I could just see coming closer to me with every review that I had under my belt. Every time I finished a book, I was just one book closer to it, which was a daunting challenge for me because, as you know, that was the first Stephen King book that I had read, and I had many, many years and many, many thoughts to get out, and I wanted to make sure that I did so the right way. And to me, that's a high watermark of the Stephen King cast. And then once it was in the rear view, to a lesser extent, The Stand was something that, presented the next challenge for me. And then The Stand, is in the rear view, which means that the next big one for me, maybe even bigger for me than it was, is Wolves of the Kala, Song of Susanna, and the Dark Tower. So probably around November, earliest November, latest December, I would predict. That's when I'm going to be jumping into the Dark Tower books, the final 3. Now, disclaimer, for the Dark Tower books that I've reviewed so far, and everything related to the Dark Tower, I've released a bonus episode where I get into the spoilers of future Dark Tower events within the bonus episode rather than the reviews themselves. So I've done a review, there was a second part review of The Gunslinger, there was a bonus episode of The Drawing of the Three, a bonus episode of The Wastelands, there was a bonus episode of The Talisman, and Eyes of the Dragon, bonus episode of It, bonus episode of The Stand, bonus episode of, I think there was another bonus episode somewhere, I don't remember where, but bonus episodes all over the place. There will not be any bonus episodes once I get to Wolves of the Kala. Once I get to Wolves of the Kala, I'm going to make the assumption that you have read Song of Susanna and the Dark Tower, so I'm just giving you some lead time. If you have not finished reading the Dark Tower series, as soon as I get to the Wolves of the Kala, I'm going to start spoiling the events of the Dark Tower. So it is August 7th, so like I said, at the very earliest, you have until November. So I mean, we have some time to finish the Dark Tower series if you have not done so already. But like I said, there's not going to be any bonus episodes for that. I'm just going to straight on talk about the Dark Tower ending as soon as I get to Wolves of the Kala, because basically Wolves of the Kala, Song of Susanna, and the Dark Tower function as a complete unit. I mean, that's like a trilogy end cap to a series of novels that had been written throughout different periods of Stephen King's life, whereas this is one vision that he wrote at one particular point of his life and then cut it up into 3 different books. So I'm going to treat it as such. And so it's going to take about 3 weeks, 3 weeks or a month. I don't know exactly what that's going to look like, but at the very least 1 week per book. So at the very least 3 books. And then we will have reached the tower, which to me, that's going to be an emotional part. And then from there, I'm definitely going to be able to see the end of the Stephen Kingcast in sight. So I'm sorry to be like glum if me talking about the end is going to bum you out, but we're still going to have at the very least a year together, and then from that point forward, I don't know. I mean, I guess that's just what I'm trying to say is the Stephen Kingcast as it stands. I mean, it can't continue at this pace. I'm going to reach Stephen King's point of publication, and then it's going to change. And then from that point, probably like every time he releases a new book, you'll get a new review. It's not the weekly podcast. The weekly podcast, once I get to the latest review, the weekly podcast structure is going to change. It might not be weekly, it might be bi-weekly, it might be monthly. I don't know exactly what it's going to look like, but there will be a change. So, again, guys, I'm just kind of rambling here, but I just wanted to take a moment to just thank you. I've just the feedback that I've gotten, the support that I've gotten, it really, really has meant a lot. It has made this endeavor worth it, because this is not something that I make any money on whatsoever. I don't run advertisements. I don't have a crowdfunding. When I originally sat down, I thought maybe Kickstarter, but I even started typing up a Kickstarter application, which actually might be on Kickstarter, but I never launched it. I don't have corporate sponsorship. It's just me. It's just me doing this. for fun, and it's something that I've really really enjoyed. I'm glad that you guys have enjoyed as well. So just thank you everybody so much. It's been a surprising ride for me because I haven't. I mean, I thought that I knew how I felt about some of his books, but going back and looking at through a critical lens, there's definitely been some surprises there for me. For instance, uh, Christine. I didn't realize that I was going to have so much to say about Christine. I mean, that review to me, I'm very proud of that review. And that novel really spoke to me. The Tommyknockers, I did not expect to like as much as I did because I had read it before. I've always enjoyed it, but I thought if I'm going to look at it with a critical lens, I was going to tear it to shreds. And I couldn't. I still enjoy the Tommyknockers, and I still stand by it. So, I mean, there's definitely surprises out there. I'm sure that there's surprises still to come. I'm looking forward to tackling Stephen King's more existential works, like Doomakey and Lisey's Story, novels that I did not respond to well the first time, but I didn't feel as though I was in the right. I don't feel like I was approaching it the right way. I was looking for Stephen King, the horror novelist, Stephen King, the supernatural auteur who had given me The Crimson King and Atropos and Insomnia, who had given me Tack in Desperation, and The Regulators and The Regulators. These high concept, high octane books. With the books I just listed, Lisey's Story and Doomakey. I mean, he's not doing that, but that was never his intent. So when I had first sat down to read those particular books, I was not reading them to appreciate the author's intent or the author's purpose. So going back with a more objective lens is just I'm hoping to get more out of those particular works. Okay, guys, I've been rambling for just about a half an hour. But again, guys, listen, can't do this without you. I appreciate you tuning in every week and listening to me ramble on. I can't really put into words how much that means to me. It's just thank you for being out there. Thank you for listening. Thank you for making this project worthwhile for me on my end of things. You're making me go back and you're making me, raise the bar for myself. I'm not slacking on this. I'm taking this very, very seriously. And I want to make sure that you guys are getting something out of this. So from the bottom of my heart, guys, thank you so much. Everybody out there, thank you from all over the world. Thank you for listening. Thank you for spreading the Stephen Kingcast like Captain Trips. And keep on spreading it, because I really appreciate it. Let's infect the whole world with the Stephen Kingcast. And guys, gals, everyone out there, thank you so much for everything that you do. And as always, I'll see you here, same King time, same King channel, Stephen Kingcast. And as you listen to my review of Nightmares and Dreamscapes and The Night Flyer, you will see that I will have included a new ending to the Stephen Kingcast that will kick off so you get to look forward to that. All right, everyone. Thank you for just everything. Just thank you for being a constant listener to this podcast. I appreciate everything that you do. And if you haven't done so already, please leaving a review on the podcast platform of your choice would greatly help me out. And I always want your thoughts. I can't do this alone. So write into stephenkingcast@yahoo.com and follow me on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, and Blue Sky. And may you have long days and pleasant nights. And I'll see you here next time where MOON spells Stephen Kingcast.